With the latest on the migrant crisis, and it's very much a case of good news, bad news for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. In a moment, I'll tell you why the Prime Minister's pledge to stop the boats did sort of come true over the weekend. But first, it's emerged that more than 21,000 asylum seekers have simply gone missing in Britain in the last 5 years. Home Office officials have been unable to locate at least 21,107 foreign nationals who claimed to be refugees, and even more worrying, the true figure could be much, much higher, as the information only covers the 5 years up to last September. Well, to discuss this latest scandal, I'm joined by the immigration lawyer and great friend of the show, Harjit Singh Bangal. Welcome to the show, Harjit. Always an absolute pleasure. OK, so if we adjust these figures, because they're 8 months out of date, say let's add another 15,000, the true figure could be 36,000 people. These have no right to be here. Their asylum claims are mostly knocked back or withdrawn. How can 36,000 people simply vanish?
Well, they're supposed to sign on. The Home Office is supposed to ask them to sign at reporting centres. They simply don't go to sign. They don't have insurance numbers, national insurance numbers. They can't be traced through that. And, they don't have bank accounts, so they can't be traced through that. They pretty much live in a black economy, earning wages cash in hand. And it's hard to trace people like that. The Home Office's job is to keep an eye on these people. Obviously, it doesn't do that. But let's just put asylum seekers aside for 1 minute. Just people who overstay generally, because we don't have any exit controls, Martin. We don't know how many people actually go back. We know how many come in because we hear that every week, but we don't know whether they go back or not. Other countries, when you leave their country, they have immigration at the desk and they ask you how you've been, right, where's your next destination? They stamp you out. Anybody who's been to an airport in the UK leaving the UK will know that there's no immigration there. There's no immigration to ask you where you're going, how you've been staying, where's your, where have you been staying, how was your stay, and whether you've adhered to your visa conditions or not. We simply don't know. We can't even count the people who are going out. Therefore, we do lose people who just assimilate into the system. There's an estimated 700,000 people living just in the black market, in the black sort of underground without visas, and are just living day-to-day cash in hand in their communities. And that is quite a worrying figure for the Home Office, the fact that there are people here and they don't know who they are or how many there are.
Yeah, and it also makes a complete mockery of our ability to even pretend we can control who is in the country. We have no idea who these people are. They could be anybody. They could have thrown their identities into the channel. We hear that so often as well, We spoke about it many times on the show. They could be anybody. They could be anywhere. This is an absolute outrage. What needs to be done to try and locate them, Harjit, and give them their just dues and get them out of the country?
Well, there's not much we can do to try and locate them. We can just, the main thing is they're probably working somewhere, so more raids on British businesses, unfortunately, going to areas and asking people for IDs. However, that's not going to go down well either. Essentially, these people are working somewhere, and the only way they're going to be exposed is through raids on businesses or working places. If we'd had a processing centre in France and people had applied before coming over, we would know these people. We would already have the DNA on profile. We'd know where they are, who they are, where they'd come from. However, that was declined by Priti Patel at the time. It's still being declined now. Therefore, we've got people on these shores and we don't know who they are and how to get them. We probably need more removal teams, probably need more enforcement teams, more investment in the Home Office. A lot of people do actually report immigrants to immigration, and a lot of those reports aren't acted on. They aren't acted upon. Anybody who's made a report to immigration will probably tell you that they haven't even bothered to get a reply from immigration. They aren't even told, right, okay, we'll act on this information. So therefore, it's going to be hard in the circumstances for these people to be found. And the government really have got a mess, which they themselves created, on their hands.
Harjit, you mentioned something very, very interesting there, and that is DNA records, DNA profiling. There are actually toying with that idea at the moment in Austria because they have an unprecedented massive wave of immigration into their country, people claiming to be family members who oftentimes aren't. Do you think that's something that we maybe could entertain the notion of doing in the United Kingdom, a DNA database of everybody coming here to allow us to track them? Or would that be pushed back against by human rights lawyers who might say it's intrusive and against their human rights?
Yeah, a lot of people will push back against it. Even ID cards have been pushed back against. However, it might solve the problem of finding people. So it's all down to what the country's requirements are at the end of the day in order to secure their borders. Has this government got the will to do what it say it will? So far, we've seen it doesn't. It says a lot of things and does hardly anything. It says we're going to bring the numbers down, and what do? They go up over the years. It says we're going to introduce schemes to deter people. What does it do? It doesn't act as a deterrent at all. The weather's more of a deterrent than these government schemes themselves. So this government really has to get a grip on it. And it doesn't matter who we've had as ministers. We've had more ministers than we've probably had presenters on TV. So there you go, Martin. These ministers, they say one thing and they just do the other thing. And all they can do is criticise, but no one can bring up a solution. And when a solution is presented, then it's just not viable. They haven't got the infrastructure to carry it out.
Yeah, they should get more people like you involved. Harjit Singh Bangal, superb start to the show. I think the DNA database, mate, that is a fascinating idea. Now, let's nudge this conversation on because, as promised, to some good news at last for the government as they try to stop those boats, because almost 1,000 people were allegedly prevented from crossing the channel last week. And while 54 migrants came across on Sunday, 218 people were stopped from leaving France, or they were returned to that country. Well, I'm joined now by Kevin Saunders, who, of course, is the former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force at Calais. Kev, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Hope you're keeping well. This is a rare piece of good news here, Kevin. This is a Freedom of Information request. The Home Office put this data out. It was an exclusive today in The Sun. For the first time, the Home Office have released preventions data as well as arrivals data. Tell us about that, Kev.
Well, yes, certainly. It is good news. And I've been very critical of the French, as you know. But I think we ought to give them a gold star because they have done exceedingly well over the last few weeks in stopping the boats leaving France. So well done. Let's have more of it.
Yeah, and the data is got to say, it's pretty impressive. And again, I join you on that, Kevin. We are often very critical of the French police here, but the Home Office, as I said, for the first time, have released this data. This is the preventions data. So there were 711 arrivals last week on Wednesday, the highest so far in 2024. But they also claim to have stopped 977 people leaving French beaches in the past 7 days. That's almost 1,000 stopped in a week. Kevin, that's good news.
That's cracking news. It really is good news, and we should be shouting it from the rooftop because we have been very critical, and this is good news. It perhaps proves that things are beginning to turn a little bit in our favour, and hopefully stopping people making this awful journey.
Now, Kev, there is one caveat, and I hate to be a party pooper because we are having a good time here, sharing some good news. These figures apparently are based on estimates given to the Home Office by the gendarmes, by the French police. So they're estimates based on averages. Do you think they're, in that case, Kev, a true reflection of what's actually happening on those French beaches?
They're pretty accurate. The French aren't going to invent figures to make themselves look good. Because if they did and they were found out, nobody would listen to them ever again. So I think these figures are pretty accurate. And, it is good news, Martin. I mean, there's not a lot more I can say other than well done, the French, and I'm very happy that they're doing it.
Yeah, I think we should record that little moment there. Kevin Saunders saying well done to the French. Do you know what, Kev? I'm going to join you. Well done to the French. If this is true, and if almost 1,000 have been stopped in 1 week alone, this is what we want to hear. Maybe that £500 million is actually having some results. And this is precisely, Kev, the sort of information that the government should be shouting from the rooftops.
Yes, it is. And it does go to prove that we have spent a lot of money there. We've given them some really good bits of kit. They're using them. And this looks as though they're getting the results that we hoped that they were going to get. So long may it continue. I think this week is going to be a very key week in the crossings because the weather is supposed to be relatively good. So the people smugglers will be doing their best to get the people across. And I just hope that the French authorities are up to stopping them all. Because if this sort of figure is repeated at the end of this week or beginning of next week, then we really can get quite excited.
OK, Kevin Saunders, once again, we'll get back to having a pop at the French next week. But for now, well done. Kevin Saunders, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.